Hello and welcome to Stylish Chats with Creatives. Today on the podcast, I'm chatting to Immy Cooke. Immy is a content creator and visual artist, and we actually met a couple of weeks ago whilst Immy was in Still Life Story and I wandered in. We had a good old chat about how our partners don't really understand being freelancers. And we just got chatting from there. I think I disturbed you for a good 45 minutes.
It was a good 45 minutes. But yeah, no, it was great. It made my day much better.
Ah, that's good. That's good. So how you been? You all right?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. We were just, before I pressed record, we were just eyeing up my dog that's asleep behind me. Just, I
That's
can't ever
very cute.
I can't do any work while she's there like that. I'll have to block her out with my body so I can't look at her. She's too cute. So, you do some content creation for Still Life Story. Is it just their social media and stuff, or is it other bits as well?
Yeah, so I have been working at Still Life now since last June, so that's what, I don't know, 8 months or something. Um, and it kind of started off fairly slow, just popping into the shop and picking up product and creating a couple of basically more, I would say, just tailored styles of content rather than because they were already doing a really great job. They already had a good social media, but it was more things like reels and kind of being a bit more strategic with
Mhm.
it. So that's where I came in, and it's just grown in the past couple of months. I met you in store, and so over Christmas we got really busy, and I was able to work in the shop as well, which was just an amazing opportunity for me. It's something I love to do, and I've really kind of got to know a lot more about Stockport, a lot more about the community, and yeah, it doesn't really compare. Like how I think about creating content specifically for the business now is like leaps and bounds different to how I was thinking about it when I was just doing it from like my own space, my own home, or maybe out and about in Stockport. But from working in the shop, it's been good. So it's mainly social media content creation. I do management a little bit. We kind of all share that though. And then it's analytics and statistics and feedback. And yeah, obviously it's new year now. So we've just been planning the next kind of year and what that looks like. So obviously I hope to have a long-term relationship with them and keep going, whether it's part-time or if that increases or whatnot. It's just been a really good opportunity.
So, how did you get into the content creation and kind of like marketing side? Because the analytics, I get thrown some analytics on my work Instagram and I'm like, don't know what this means. Great, it's gone in front of 800 people. Cool. Have no idea what this means. How did you get to that a pocket of knowledge?
So I have a bit of like a funny journey of kind of how I ended up where I am. I started off doing YouTube basically when I was about 17, and I just started college. So a big part of that obviously comes from my own analytics, and I was just learning as I went, which was, a really interesting thing, seeing kind of where my viewers were and who was buying things through my links, because that's how I started making money from it. I didn't have really big enough of a following to do many sponsorships or partnerships. I got a lot of stuff sent to me. So it was all through kind of like we have something called Restyle Me, which was and like basically affiliate links. So a lot of my analytics really came in handy to kind of know what products I was targeting and who I was selling to. And my whole thing was about sustainability. So obviously I wasn't selling a lot of products. It was more kind of considered brands, and there's good affiliate schemes with things like that. And so I started that way just for my own earning potential, basically. And then I went to uni and I did fashion communication. So
Okay.
yeah, I went to do kind of more like styling and the creative direction side of it, which is why I'm a content creator slash visual artist, because I kind of encompass a bit of everything. So during that, I will say analytics played no part in it whatsoever. It was only focused on like aesthetics, I don't know, emotions, how something makes us feel when we look at it, kind of energy.
Yeah.
So I was completely unprepared for like stepping into social media management, but that's what I did. I ended up getting a internship during lockdown, basically, for a beauty company in London. So I was based in Manchester, and I could do that remotely. And we had a really great marketer on our team. She was yeah, a wonderful worker. We kind of worked together to create content for ads, and she was obviously putting all the analytics to use and talking about like who we're trying to hit and what a demographic is. And that was a good stepping stone, but again, she handled a lot of it, so I was very much able to rely on the artistic thing, but it's always been there in the background. However, it was only when my most recent kind of real job um, was for an agency, and that was talking to clients and basically just going so in depth about click through rate and stopping time and rewatch. And it was like everything, because we were working with bigger brands who were spending larger amounts on these things. Our budget might have been, 5,000 for the small brand I was working for before, whereas these companies were talking 50,000 a month.
Yeah.
So suddenly analytics became really important, and it was my job to tell them that we were going to make it go up, basically. I didn't really know how. So much of it is kind of by chance. And I think you have to explain that to a lot of people nowadays, because everything online, especially when it comes to, I would say, like Meta and TikTok, it changes weekly. So there is a good amount of guesswork and, an educated guess. And
Yeah.
I realized only when I was doing that that is what everyone else is doing as well. You just don't, you can look at analytics till you're blue in the face, and in some ways they're so helpful. But the weird thing about like the internet is that things are really just unpredictable. Like, just some of the randomest stuff goes viral, and really random accounts. And I remember being told like to look at, was it Ryanair or something really random, being like, how good their social marketing. And I was like, yeah, but we're a shampoo.
Yeah.
How can we compare? And they wanted me to take this inspiration. And I was like, not only have they not a product, they also have thousands to spend again in all of their publicity, and like, if they're doing any kind of guerrilla marketing and things like that, which all in turn, causes clicks and engagement and whatever else. So that's kind of the long-winded story of how I ended up learning all about analytics. And it just happens that now I'm able to apply it to something that I really love, which is still life and other kind of independent clients, and actually able to help small businesses to use that data to know who they should be targeting, where they're missing out on, what engages really well with existing audiences slash what is going to reach out to a new demographic, and things like that. So there's so much potential with it. It is it's a bit of I don't know how to say it, other than like a mind fog of like information all the time. And it's not my favorite thing, but it's so beneficial. And if I can benefit, like I said, the people I actually really want to work with, then I might as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right there. And there's so much information that gets thrown at you, and you're right about you never really know what's going to go viral. I take the Stanley Cups as a bit of a thing at the moment,
Oh
because they've gone from
God,
like,
yeah.
I saw a few people with the kind of, I'm going to call it the kind of like neutral aesthetic with them. And then I saw the video of the woman whose car set alight, and the only thing surviving in the car was the Stanley Cup. And then she got bought a car by Stanley because they were on it, their marketing team. And it
Yeah.
turned from like a construction cup, so people in construction using it, to like this neutral beige girls using it. And you're like,
I know.
what the fuck?
I always compared it in my mind almost to like Dickies, because I always felt like they did the same thing. Like my dad went to work on, wherever he was working on like a building site, whatever it is, with his Stanley bottle and his Dickies trousers and
Yeah.
his Doc Marten steel toe cap boots. That was like his working class uniform.
Yeah.
And then I remember meeting my partner Joe. We've been together for 7 years, and he was like a skateboarder, and I was like, oh my god, I love that. And then seeing he was wearing Dickies, and I was like, you're like my dad. What are you doing? He was like, no, they're cool. And I was like, are you sure? And honestly, the Stanley Cup thing baffles me, because they've just put a straw on it and a bunch of pastel colours and reached a whole new audience. It did like this whole Starbucks collaboration that's just been going on. People are physically fighting to get. Someone jumped over the counter and stole a box of these like limited edition Stanley cups because
What?
they're worth so much to resell. People are selling selfies with the cup. Someone on Facebook was like, "Meet me outside this address. $3 for 3 photos of you with the cup to make out as if you have one."
What?
What has our world come to?
What? We're so
And
consumerist driven, aren't we?
it's insane because again, the whole purpose of when we started to look at getting reusable cups and bottles and things was to not use single use ones, but people have so many that they might as well be almost. You're purchasing so much, and just to produce all of these new cups is just insane. I'm baffled. It baffles me.
Yeah, it baffles me too. I've got 2 water bottles, and one of them doesn't stand up straight anymore because I've dropped it on the floor that many times. It fell off an ironing board at work
Oh God.
and landed on the base and was just like, but it still works. So I'm like, fine, I'm not going to change it. But people gift
Yeah.
them now, don't they? Like, they're like, oh, do you want a water? Like, you get water bottles when you go to a convention or, you know, as though you don't
Yeah.
need, like, as though you need another 20 in your cupboard.
I know. I mean, I think Joe's had one of every job he's like had. And I used to get sent quite a few when I was doing my sustainable YouTube content from like different kinds of brands because there was loads of them at the time kind of coming out with like Chili's dupes almost.
Yeah.
So I had a few of those and I've ended up gifting them to like a lot of people, like my mom and, you know, to kind of, but to stop them from buying their own
Yeah.
because I only need one. I
Yeah.
only have one mouth. I only need one bottle. And to be honest, I prefer having a plastic one, which is really controversial, but I just prefer them because they're lighter to carry around and I take my water with me everywhere. So I like what was it, a Nalgene? Those
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
ones with the, yeah.
Yeah.
And just I just take it with me everywhere. I just refill it constantly. I only need one bottle.
Yeah. That's true. It's so true. I've got like yeah, mine's a little green one. I can't remember what it's called. Um, but yeah, that was slightly lighter because I had a insulated one that was really heavy when I was out walking with the dog and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got a slightly lighter one. But yeah, then I dropped it. So, you know, it's still all right in my bag. It's fine. But
You just have to hammer it out. Just get a hammer and make
yeah,
the other side match.
that's it. You'll just see me in the street hitting it.
Yeah.
So how are you finding working in Stockport? Because we were just chatting before I pressed record, and I said to you about how much Stockport had changed in the 6 years from when we moved there. Like, yeah, we bought our first house there in 2016, and it's just progressively got better and better and better. And I wonder if you have seen that working in the shop as well, because you must get like a nice kind of gauge on the customers and the people who are floating around. And
Yeah, I mean, a big part of I say I'm so invested in it now. It's one of those really weird things. So, because talking about Stockport specifically, the reason I ended up here was completely because of still life. And I said this to my boss recently at our Christmas do. And I was like, I'm very dramatic. I'm a Pisces, so I'm pretty dramatic. I'm pretty emotional. And so when I say something, I'm like, this is with every intensity of my fiber and being. And I was like, I moved here because of this shop. And it's not, and obviously, realistically, I moved here because my partner wanted to, and there was a good price, and we were kind of being priced out of the city. But a year ago, well, over a year ago, I saw still life on Instagram and I thought anywhere that can have a shop that nice and be that close to the city centre must be somewhere that's worth like visiting, basically.
yeah,
And I looked at the house prices because that's a big kind of gauge for me of where we want to end up. Part of my side hustle is in interior design and decorating and styling and whatnot. That's a business I have with my mom. So we're always looking at potential properties. And I thought, I'm just going to take my mum. We're going to have a little drive around. We'll make a couple of bookings of viewings and then we'll go to Still Life and we'll have a walk around and see what's going on. And my first impression was it was okay.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was like, it's a bit of a quiet, grey day. but I don't know, I just saw some potential in it, and I thought I'm going to come back. And so I came back again and saw that the shop was actually advertising the role, and immediately I was like, this is for me. Like, it was meant for me. I was like, I'm going to get this job. It's going to be great. And yeah, long story short, just loved visiting so much. Loved the community. Every time I kind of went there, they were getting me to engage in what was going on locally, because they're such a big part of supporting Stockport and kind of seeing it evolve and grow. So all of the other local businesses like Remags and Amico and General Store, whatever is going on, food, drinks, there was like my first ever shift, well, my first ever, I suppose, like freelancing day there. I got the job on Friday, and Ruby, the founder, had just said, there's actually a street party going on tomorrow in Stockport. It's the beginning of like summer kind of, and it was a lovely day. She was like, would you be able to come in and just like film it? And I was like, just threw me in the deep end of kind of just fully experiencing Stockport. And I was like seeing all the families around, and just everyone was out with their dogs. And it just felt so nice and so warm and wholesome. And I even mentioned it to my dad, and he was like, do you know what? I'm going to come up too. And he just popped up with a dog, and we all kind of spontaneously had this really, really lovely day. And I was like, yeah, this is a really nice place. It's something big is happening here. But at that point, I'd only really seen the underbanks in this kind of very small section of it. And then it's only through working there in the past month or two that I've, been sent on errands and done a lot more. But actually, I just still love it. It kind of gives me that, like, it reminds me of home where I'm from a little bit as well. That kind of mix between, it's almost like a countryside feeling. Like, there's proper locals still.
Yeah.
You've got your proper local probs, your proper local people who've lived there their whole lives. And a lot of the people I talk to are like, we've just moved back. A
Mm.
lot of people were like, I've grown up in Stockport, moved away, I didn't love it, and I've moved back. And it's in their older age, or maybe they're having their own kids or grandkids even. And it's an interesting conversation, because people are like, well, they're just telling me so much about the history of the town already. I don't know anything. I don't even know what the present version of the town barely. And everyone's so invested, which you don't witness that kind of thing anywhere else. Like, even where I grew up, when I used to work in like Home Bargains, no one was like, oh God, Shrewsbury's a lovely place, because yeah, it is, but it also kind of always has been.
Yeah.
It's a kind of an old little town, whereas Stockport has obviously seen these like really big highs and lows, and now it feels like we're very much on an incline again. Well, that's, obviously, again, I'm very much new to it, but that I feel so much like I want to be a part of it, and I want to be a part of its success already, just because I've been so invested from like day one.
Yeah, I think you're right. It definitely feels like a small town rather than like a city.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's bizarre, because again, even when I was in Manchester, living in Manchester full time, nobody really spoke about Stockport. Nobody said like, "Do you want to go for a date?" It was always like Altrincham, or like, I don't know,
Yeah.
IKEA.
Yeah.
It's kind
Or
of
like
like,
or Didsbury, or
yeah, exactly,
yeah.
like Chorlton or something, and no one kind of ever said Stockport. And I was like, my God, this place is great and affordable, and still kind of on the down low a little bit as well, which you can still, there's still potential for people to move in and make them mark and be a part of things. And I'm seeing that all the time, like with Coral, who owns Immy Cooke, she's just opened Miru Mills, and that's like a great new space for people to come and do like apprenticeships and have their own studio space, and they're obviously growing their team. And that's such an amazing opportunity, that a small clothing store that hand makes garments, they take a long time to create. They're made with love, they're made sustainably, and they are at a position where not only can they sustain the shop, they're actually able to create a new creative space for other people in the area and grow. And I mean, who knows where, that's going to end up. And just to be able to see that happening right now, it just feels like just the best time.
Yeah, it's really flourishing, I think Stockport is. And like the day I came in last week before, I didn't do part of the underbanks actually. I was like away with the fairies buying loads of little bits here, there and everywhere. And you kind of, there's parts of it that you kind of forget about if you've not been for ages. And you're like, oh yeah, the underbanks. Oh yeah, that part. Oh yeah, you know, there's so much to it
Yeah.
now. And it's so nice to hear
And
that local businesses are able to keep growing, because I think in the city centre, in Manchester city centre, I feel like they'd be outpriced.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like I was really sad when Oklahoma closed.
Oh, me too.
One of my like strongest memories when I was young and I first visited Manchester with my mom. I'm really close to my mom, by the way, if you can't tell. We're like best friends. So she took me and we stayed the night and she took me to Affleck's and just tried to kind of give me a bit of I don't know, style, I suppose. And I must have been about 13, like I was young still. And I just remember being in this shop and being like, this is an amazing shop. And it just so happened that like when I found the flat that I moved to, again, this is all during like the pandemic. I barely viewed it. It was just like a manic thing. And I learned it was on the street that I was living on. It's like this is like a sign. And I just thought I need to be around indies constantly. I always kind of end up drawn to them. And then when that shut, and like obviously now it's still another great shop that's, you know, an ethical clothing store and whatnot, but it is a bigger name.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's good that they're bringing clothing and other people to kind of walk down these areas that people will be looking for that shop and they'll be more inclined to visit. But I also don't know if we need it. I sometimes think that a kind of a collection of indies is almost stronger. The best thing about like, you know, Christmas and indie shopping is when you can go from one to another and you can do all your Christmas shopping or everything you need is in that one little row together, which you kind of get with Stockport. Like I can go get my coffee beans and my magazine and my candles, and then I can go to the market and get my veg and my flowers and my bread and my wine. And
Yeah.
you know, it's really got it. There's a few things a few more cafes would be great, a few more maybe places to drink and stuff to get people in on the weekends. And but yeah, it really feels like it's. I could talk about it for ages, as you can tell. I would love my own shop on there one day, but yeah, we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, I'm with you though on the indie shops as well, because where I'm from, the city where I'm from, there's no independence anymore. And you could blink and be, I don't know, in Coventry or like anywhere else. And I think the independents bring community and a sense of uniqueness, I guess, to the towns. Because like I'm in Homefirth and we've got a lot of independent shops and all the shop owners know each other and they're all interlinked and they're all chatting. But then when you go in the shop and they go, oh, hey, Charlotte, how are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And have a chat with you for 10 minutes, you feel like you're getting a personal service.
Yeah,
And you
which
don't.
is what you have to do to survive now as well.
Yeah.
It's a funny balance between like I love giving that service because that's what I like when I go into a shop. Like obviously we were chatting like immediately,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what it just like fills me up with love and joy, and I'm like, you know, these are great people, but also it's a sense of belonging,
Mm-hmm.
which I in my own like life have really struggled with. From me and my partner have moved loads. Basically, we've just never really stayed anywhere for like too long. And then I once started to try and get that, and I felt like I was like gaining it, and then COVID hit, and my uni shut, and my yoga studio shut, and it was such like silly things, but to me, my whole like structure and social life just dissolved around me. And then for the past kind of almost 2 years, I've been piggybacking off my boyfriend and off his friends almost. And although I love them and it's been, you know, obviously great, it's only now having moved and finding people who are very like-minded people. I felt like I was in such like a rat race in Manchester.
Yeah.
And just to take a step into just you know, a couple of miles, it's 15 minutes on the train. It's like nothing. I feel like I'm in a completely different place, and it feels like I found somewhere that again I could like call home.
Yeah.
And I want to call home, which is the best thing about it. And it's you know, it's hard to explain that to my parents because they're still in the beautiful countryside where it's rural, and again, you do know all your neighbors and the shops all know your name, but it's that balance of like being able to survive and be a creative and an artist and thrive and have that sense of community in so many markets and, you know, stalls, whatever, that you'll never run out of something to do here, but also maintaining that communication and friendship with everybody around you.
Yeah, I think it's like the perfect balance. Like,
Yeah.
when we bought, we didn't buy quite in Stockport, we were in Reddish. And I think had we have gone a bit more towards Stockport or a little bit more countryside initially, probably would have been better for us, because where we've moved now, we're rural. I mean, there's not even a train station in Home Firth, which is slightly annoying. But we're now in a community where, like, I go to life drawing classes. I know the artist who runs it. I know certain people who are there now. We all sit and chat, and then you see them out in town, and you're like, "Hey, how you know?" And you've got this sense of community. But it's funny because that sense of community when I was younger, in the small town that I was from, was suffocating because my grandparents lived there. They all knew my mum and dad. They all knew my dad's family. They knew my aunties. They knew everybody. Whereas here,
Yeah.
they only know me and Nath, so they don't know everybody. There's no like, oh, we've not seen your grandma at the market.
Yeah, no, I couldn't deal with that.
Well,
When I go back, it's when I visited my dad recently, and I just decided to take his dog for a walk. And I haven't lived with my dad, you know, since I was probably about 14. Like I was, and it just, people don't recognize me as his daughter. They know me by name. So they recognize the dog and not me. And I was walking down this road and I could hear people going, "Oh, that's Glenn's dog. But I don't know who the woman is that's with her." And they were like, "Do you know what? That must be Glenn's daughter. She's Imogen. She lives in Manchester. She's studying this." And I'm like, "I'm walking towards you and I can hear you." And they were talking about me as if I wasn't there. And I was just like, this is village living. This isn't town. This is village living. They knew I was like, I have no idea who any of you are. And then they were talking to the dog as if they were like best mates. And I was like, I'll just keep walking then. Okay. It was a bizarre experience.
yeah, that's definitely
That's
like,
too small for me.
yeah, that's how I feel when I go back to my hometown. Like, my grandma's the only one who's there now. Like, the rest of us have all, I was going to say fled. We've all gone. So we went in the big Tesco actually, when we went back for Christmas, and I just said to my other half, I was like, thank God I'm more heavily tattooed and that people don't really recognize me anymore. And I'm wearing my glasses, and like, no one will really, my mum and dad don't even live there anymore, so they're like, no one else will know who I am. So yeah, I was just like, oh, thank God I'm kind of in disguise now. But when I used to go back and visit mum and dad, they'd be like, oh, you're Graham's daughter. Oh, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. You've been in Manchester with your boyfriend, and, you know, oh, when you getting married? And you'd just be like, do you guys,
Who are you?
who are you? And then I'd describe them to my mum, and she'd be like, oh yeah, that was Auntie so-and-so from, like, she knew you when you were born. Like, great. I
Yeah,
don't remember.
yeah, that is slightly suffocating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for some people, but that's why, you know, some of us flee and don't return. There's a reason for that. I mean, I think it provides a sense of comfort as well, that kind of way of living. Like, I love hearing about it. Like, my family and I are closer when I do call them, and they're kind of telling us, oh, you know, like, oh, you know, Doreen. I'm like, I have no idea who Doreen is. And they're like, you know, Doreen, she's so and so's auntie and so, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. I just kind of, it makes me feel very kind of like, oh, I'm glad these are your problems.
Yeah.
You're not kind of worried about anything else. Like, it makes me feel like my family is safe and I have a safe space to return to if I ever, you know, needed to. But God, no, I couldn't live like that.
No.
Personally.
No, I'm the same. We went back for like 18 months, 2 years before we bought our house. And people would be like, oh, Charlotte's car's parked there, to my mum and dad. And it'd be like, maybe I'm just seeing a friend, or maybe like I've gone to work and come back, or maybe my car's parked down the street because I can't park in front of my house, or...
I have too many secrets. I don't even have my location on for my parents. There's a reason for that. You know,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't need to know where I am.
No, you're a grown-ass woman. Grown-ass woman.
Oh,
It was
Yeah. Okay.
it was suffocating. I think it's because we all grew up there, and like my granddad was a farmer, and like, you know, my mum was born in the town, and like just it was so integrated that everyone knew everything, which was nice when I think when we were little, but when you're a grown ass woman
Yeah.
and
It doesn't really work. That's the problem. It doesn't. You can't sustain it for like a long term, and not
no,
almost not in the circumstances that we're in now. Like with, I think, given like social media and people very much want to present themselves that in certain ways. And I also think, although that's controversial, people, kind of can be whoever they want online. I think it's our right to be whoever we want to be online, because that's the one part we choose to show of ourselves.
yeah,
And I always think about, the one day if I ever do have children, because we're raising them in a very different time and different climate. I feel like if people knew who I was and knew, my they would want to be very involved in my children's life. And people feel like they have a right to that because they know you and they know your family. And
yeah.
it almost, when you want to be a bitch, it makes it a lot harder. Like if if I always think, if I, you see people, especially like older people, be like, oh, can I hold your baby? Can I touch your baby? And I kind of think, well, things have changed, and it's okay to say, no, you can't, and no, please don't, and please leave us alone and let us have our personal space. But there's a very much an expectation in small towns and villages to just be super friendly, super accommodating, which usually I am. But if I was a parent, or, I think it changes how I would see those things. And yeah.
I even think, and I'm not sure if I've told this story on here or not, but me and my other half, we were engaged, and we were round in the supermarket, and my auntie, who's not blood, but she was married to my dad's brother, she outright said to me and my husband, oh, so when are we going to hear the pitter patter of tiny feet? And my other half has got a very dark sense of humour. I won't say the joke because it stopped her in her tracks, and I don't think she ever asked anybody when they were getting pregnant ever again. It was just classic small town, like, like that's the thing, you get married, you have a baby, then you have another one. And like, it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
like it's even like my mum got, and she won't remember me saying this, but she had to text me and she was like, Shah, I need to just ask what your stance is on having kids, and if I can tell people that you're not having kids, because people are asking me when you're having children. They were stopping my mum in the street.
That is so it what?
It's so
It's so
inappropriate, isn't it?
inappropriate. So inappropriate.
Yeah.
But that is change. That is a change. And we have to admit that and kind of come to terms with that in the
Yeah.
same way that they do, in the fact that it's inappropriate to ask that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh, sorry.
I was just
A
gonna,
lot of it, I think, is education wise, isn't it? That
yeah. Yeah.
we have that ability to kind of educate ourselves on things now if we want to, and things weren't discussed the same.
No. And I think you're so right, because I've got a chronic illness. So I told my mum to tell people, because she came to the doctor's appointment with me, so took notes and stuff, because when you're first told, you don't really absorb anything. And I just said to her, I was like, tell people what's in your notebook. And I said, they'll soon piss off. They'll soon will stop asking and realise that it's rude. And as soon as she started saying that, like telling them what was wrong, they were all like, oh my God. And she was like, yeah, so you see that you're actually, by asking, you're being rude. And
Yeah.
so she was kind of educating her peers as well, which I think is quite unusual for somebody of her age to be educating her peers as well.
Yeah.
Because it's normally like younger generations going, actually, can we just square this away? Let's not do that. But I do think that it's changing. But I think that's just because it might also be because I'm quite chatty as well and just end up talking the hind legs off people. So I like to see people squirm if they ask me an inappropriate question. I like to see how far I can push it.
See, I couldn't imagine anything worse. I just like try and avoid things like the plague sometimes like that. I shouldn't, like, I should be better, but I've been very much raised in like I don't know, just Catholic guilt is what I'm going to call it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that kind of just, I don't know, just say the right thing and be who you want to be in private. That's always how I've been raised. So it was a massive adjustment, even for me, to kind of be like, well, people would ask me to be like, I haven't thought about it, or to just even say, well, I'm just taking it, we'll just see when I get to the time, kind of.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was my response, instead of being like, oh, it's none of your business.
yeah,
I was just like, oh, I don't know, and oh, I'm not sure. I'm only 24 now,
yeah,
so, and my parents, God bless them, that I obviously am not pressuring, but they very much would love to see me have kids, and I can't even imagine saying that to my own children personally,
yeah,
just because of, I don't know. I mean, obviously I do know why. It's just because of how differently I've been kind of led to believe, and I've witnessed things firsthand with people going through difficulties conceiving, or whatever else it may be. We are in a position where we should know better,
yeah,
basically, and we have to just do better. And it's not always on like women as well. We're still very much like women centered on women having children and women having control over it and making that decision. And that's just, it's every relationship is different, every partnership is different, every person's journey is different. Like
yeah,
I don't, yeah, it's a really tricky one. And again, another reason why I'm relieved to be out of that environment. I
yeah.
mean, until it's my birthday or Christmas, and then in the swing of it again.
But I think it's all right for like small amounts of time. Like I'm fine, like going to my grand's, or and like maybe seeing the odd person that I know around town who's my age, who stayed there and made something of themselves. But like people, I think, know better than to ask me now.
Good.
Which
That's, yeah,
makes
that's a good reputation to have, I think, in a way.
yeah, they're like, oh God, Charlotte's come in, she's gobshite, hide.
But it means you just see, that's the thing. I just put up with too much, clearly. I just like let, yeah, I don't know. I just talk to everybody, let people talk to me. However, I need to be a bit firmer with people.
I do think it's probably age though. I'm a good 12 years older than you, and I think it takes time. And also, yeah, I think me and my friend were discussing this, you hit your 30s and you just stop giving a shit what other people think of you. And it just
Yeah.
gets easier and easier and easier. So I can't wait to turn 40 and just be this wild auntie.
I can't wait to be 30. It's a weird thing. I'm like half terrified to turn 25, and half like, my 20s are the worst. Like, this is the worst. I'm just sick of it. But I've always been like kind of like grandma mom friend anyway for like such a long time, that everyone's kind of catching up with me now, and I'm like, oh wait, now I'm just my age. Like,
Yeah.
we're just all adults who have to have jobs and cars and partners and regular lives, which is a bit like alarming. I felt very grown up until everyone else is now in the same position.
Yeah. And I think you hit a point as well where you look around and you go, nobody else really knows what the fuck they're doing either.
Yeah, no. Well, no, that's just me actually. Right now, I feel like it's a really weird. I've always known what I wanted to do, but to kind of come full circle, taking this like freelancing route, especially knowing at such a young age, one of the topics we discussed and that I was like, oh my gosh, we get along so well, is the realization that I was like, oh, this is someone else who just doesn't want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And that is, I've been shamed so much throughout my life for being that way. Again, Catholic school, being a girl, all of these things. Like, I'm an only child, I have no siblings. I've always had to kind of, I don't want to say conform. Again, my parents are great; they're amazing people, but there's always going to be expectations, and I just, don't care enough about getting a job that pays well, or my pension, or like, we might not even be around that long. That's the funny side of, like, again, growing up when we have, is this realization that things have changed so quickly in just the past 30 years. I have no idea how quickly they're going to change again in the next. So why am I trying to prepare for the rest of my life that I have no idea what it's going to look like. I cannot prepare for jobs or roles that don't exist.
Yeah.
All I can do is my best and do what makes me happiest now. So I've always known I just didn't want to do the normal route. I've never wanted a boss. I've never wanted like a proper boss who determines where I am and at what time and, how I spend my life. Like it's too short for that.
Yeah.
Too short for any of all of it. I
Yeah.
just want
And
to be out.
I think as well, like we were discussing in the shop, gone are the days where you go to uni, go to college, learn a skill, and then you use that skill for the rest of your life. You clock out at 70 or 65, get a Rolex, and you're done until you're 80. That is gone now. I think people are chopping and changing way more. Even like my mum was doing like 3 or 4 different jobs. My dad was self-employed, and like nobody is really stuck in one job anymore. They're kind of like using their skills, then, like you say, finding a better work-life balance. I do think pre-COVID, everybody was all focused on productivity and earning the most money. And I think now we're going back to trying to find a better work-life balance and doing stuff that makes you happy rather than being the best and being the most productive person in the company.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's because when people's lives and jobs were being lost left, right, and centre, we had to reevaluate what skills were valuable to us as people, what skills were there to continue the human race and meet our needs. And I have none of those skills. I can honestly say that, hold my hands up. I have nothing to contribute to this world other than my art, which in some ways is great. It's amazing because there are no expectations of me.
Yeah.
I kind of only have to meet my own expectations. But in other ways, my dad lost his job and he has, his entire life, again, we grew up fairly working class, just doing kind of labourer jobs and whatnot. And he had to, he was made redundant and I had to basically find a way for him to get work without all of his usual means, which was he doesn't have internet. He didn't have a smartphone. He relied completely on his landline at the time, and he doesn't even have like satellite. He just has a TV that he puts videos and DVDs in. And he lives such a simple life that to him, finding work was calling up someone and saying, "Have you got jobs?" and just passing that message around. And he lost that
Yeah.
completely. And suddenly I was like, well, this is actually this is my expertise. This is what I do. I promote people and I help. I'm chronically online. I was studying communications. I was doing my YouTube part time and I was freelancing for a couple of brands doing social media. And I thought I can advertise my dad. And since then he's been freelance as a painter and decorator. It's not, everything he's dreamed of, but it means that the past 3 going on 4 years, he's been able to provide for himself. He's been able to work for himself. And obviously he's probably working 10 times harder, which I obviously don't love to see, but he's really proud.
Yeah.
And he tells me that all the time. And I was able to make that happen. Starting him off with, his Facebook and even his insurance and business cards, but everything from like getting the right licenses and the right cards and things he needed that were all done online to, like I said, doing the kind of more pretty marketing actually in my wheelhouse thing.
Yeah.
And it changed so much. And I think even if we're not exactly living like that now, if we still are kind of, people still struggle with the work-life balance, but at least it's a discussion. At least we're talking about what those relevant things are and having like that third space conversation, which I think is a really interesting one, kind of having your work, home, and a third place that is almost synonymous with something that is a happy place and something that's for you, whether it be, a certain bar or a pub or, your friend's house or a gardening club or yoga or whatever that is. We're discussing these things, which is, it makes us feel like our time is ours again.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think without that massive enforced break that COVID was for a lot of people, I know a lot of people also worked extremely fucking hard and didn't get that break either. But I do feel like it's reset quite a lot of people and they've gone like, actually, I don't need to be in a rat run. I can happily turn up to work, do my job, and I'm going home. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not doing any more than I need to. And that's it. And then I'm going to go off and do my gardening or, like you say, you know, go to the cinema or actually live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great because I think again, people are so we put so many expectations on ourselves, and all of my friends, whether they're a freelancer or not, we have this conversation a lot of the time, which is they're like, "Oh, we need so much overtime," and my immediate thing is, "Are you being paid for that?
Yeah.
Are you being paid for your overtime?" And they're always 10 out of 10, no, because they either I don't know have don't have they either can't do the amount of work that's expected of them within the actual time they're being paid for, or they put so many expectations on themselves that they set themselves more work than they can capably do.
Yeah.
Or something, because I get it. If you have something you're passionate about, if your job is lucky enough to kind of cross over with something that you really do enjoy doing, okay, but I enjoy doing this. It's not really work, but it is. It's still your time, and your time is valuable. Like
Yeah.
I'm awful. I've honestly spent hours and hours doing like illustrations and animations for like little videos that they haven't even appreciated. But I've been like, this is such a creative feat, and look how impressive this is. Took me hours, and they couldn't care less. And at that point, I had to be like, who am I doing this for?
Yeah.
Who, am I doing this for the right reasons? And I think a lot of us aren't. A lot of us do things without getting what we actually need, whether it's emotionally, physically, monetarily, whatever.
Yeah.
The exchanges, it's not worth it.
No, I agree with you because you could be doing those illustrations in your own time, having that space and that artistic freedom for yourself and really appreciating it and then using it to your advantage later down the line.
Exactly.
But yeah, I see a lot of younger people. I won't name names, but there is people who I've spoken to and they're like, yeah, we'd be expected to go to a trade show and a trade show would be 12 hours at the show and then an hour either side. And then we'd be expected to show up at the office at 9 o'clock the next day. And I'd be like, what? I'd show up at 2. If I've done a day and a
Hmm.
half's work the day before, I'm showing up at 2 the next day because I've done that time. It's done.
Yeah.
But I think it's also when you've worked for yourself and when you're of a certain age and mindset, you go, actually, I know what I'm worth. I know what my skill set is and I know what my time's worth. And actually, saying no can be quite ballsy. And I think some people just walking away from a job scares them too much and saying no to employers scares them. They have like too much fear as though they're going to lose their job or they're going to get bollocking or what have you. So
Yeah. People are really. I mean, it's. I don't know. Maybe I'm slightly delusional. Maybe I'm the problem. But I've never feared being unemployed. And again, I don't know if it's because I grew up how I did grow up, and like I said, seeing kind of my dad. We did hop around from job to job, and there were times where we had no money, but it doesn't really make you happy. And God, it makes things easier. But at the end of the day, we always had a close knit family, and everything kind of worked out. And I've always just been of that mentality of everything's going to work out, which again, maybe I'm the problem, but things, if you want something to happen bad enough, you'll make it happen.
yeah,
That's what I genuinely believe. And I've been in roles where I've been screaming at my colleagues, being like, quit with me. We've got to walk out together because what I'm going through is awful. What you're going through is even worse.
yeah,
Like people have been higher up than me, and I've been like, what are you doing? Why are you staying? You're worth so much more. You're being underpaid. You've got no quality of life because this job is all of your life. It's tied up in everything, in your friendships, and everything is integrated into it. And somehow I'm sat there telling someone else, like, why are you accepting this unhappiness?
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I've been through the same thing. My very last job, I was there 3 months. That was it. And to me, I didn't really enjoy any of those 3 months. And I just felt like I had to accept it because I needed the money and I needed a normal job. But kind of the minute I left, I quit, I was like, I am scuppered. I have lost my plans. And lo and behold, hours at still life started coming up, and I was able to do more of my free time to make money elsewhere. And things just have a funny way of working out if you really want it to be better for yourself.
Yeah, and I think also everybody has a different level of shit that they're willing to take. And I think some people take on loads and loads of shit and it's drip fed onto their backs and they're like, oh, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. And then before they know it, this is horrible metaphor. They're like literally like covered in shit and they're like, oh, I can't take this anymore. But they're so used to it that they can't get themselves out of that situation. And like I've had it similar to you. I worked at a studio and I lasted, I think it was 10 weeks. And I was just like, nope. They asked me to put emails on my personal phone, asked me to bring in my own personal laptop and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. Said, you can pay my phone bill or you can get me a work phone, but I'm not having my work emails on my
And,
own personal home phone. The
and
younger
again, I think
carry
I
on.
was to say, being young,
Yeah.
people expect me to be so appreciative of every like you said, every drip of like gratitude.
Mhm.
It's like they expect me to be so grateful. Like again, being a content creator, a big part of it is, especially when I work remotely, is they have to send me product. If they want content about that product, they have to send me product. And it's almost as if they're like, we're sending you all of your gifts, all of your presents. I'm like, no, this is a part of my job. It's not like you're sending me a bunch of things and I'm using them in my home. Like I'm a professional. These are something I'm using for the job. If I'm using them, I'm filming them. I'm not, it's a really weird concept. And again, the whole kind of work phone, work laptop. I've gone to jobs and I've been like, so do I get a work phone? And they're like, well, we're really small. We have no budget. This is how it is. But then we'll spend hundreds on, meals out for everyone or drinks or props for a shoot that you go unused or different color backdrops that aren't necessary. Like really people have this funny way of how they value you
Yes. Yeah.
versus money.
Yeah.
Because if I put myself to like a monetary value, we're talking different languages. It's a really bizarre one. But I can almost, again, with content creation, one of the great things in marketing is I can literally say, well, I've brought in this much money from this piece of content, or I've brought in this, much engagement. It doesn't always work like that, but that is one of the kind of things that I can, at least when I'm proposing to brands, not so much in like a defensive way. It's normally a positive spin. It's normally like, if you want to spend this much money a month, that's actually we can achieve A, B, C, and D with it, which is great. These are our goals. This is what you want to accomplish. But on the other hand of that, I know how much value I can bring. And
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay that I know that. It's just I don't need you to negotiate. I just need you to agree
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's
That,
what I'm telling you.
yeah. That's the hardest part, and I have the same with styling sometimes because sometimes I don't see the benefit of a stylist. And you'll go, well, actually, I can make things twice the speed because there's a photographer and me. So I'm unpacking product, making it look pretty. It's already there for the photographer. They're quicker. And so it's almost like turning your creativity, converting it into money for people who are in charge of the purse strings to understand. Because
Yeah.
sometimes they just go like, well, why do we need you? Because a photographer can do it. And you're like, you need me because I'll be quicker. You can get 3 more and then you'll make more money.
Honestly, it's this is again the thing about working for people that I've never it's just never appealed to me because it's not my job to explain these things to you. You have the money, you have the creative freedom. I might be sat here thinking I can do it better than you, but it's not my place.
Yeah.
So I just have to kind of be a bit of a yes woman sometimes. Like I've had I won't name names, but one of my previous roles, we had lined up an amazing photographer. she was creating incredible 3D printed like props and things. It just looked beautiful. And she'd worked with other similar brands in the kind of same field of product and everything. And I loved her, thought she was great. I still follow her and everything now. I think she's an amazing artist. And we got this quote back, and I think it was maybe close to 5 grand for approximately 3.5 days of work, which it sounds like a high fee, but that included all the making the props, all that styling time, all the prep behind it, post production, and taking the photos, plus like a hand model, other things that came into it. And, who I was working with at the time decided that we can probably do it cheaper. We can probably do all of that for cheaper. And I was sat there thinking, but is it worth it? Because yes, you can probably do it for cheaper, but we're all going to have to take time out of what we're doing as well, out of our schedules. So if you're using your own internal staff, we're having to take time out of what we're actually doing. You're going to have to pay for my travel, my stay, because I was remote. And then you're going to have to hire a florist, a hand model, a photographer, a post-production team, and all of us on the set, plus a place to shoot because we don't have our own studio. It came out to more.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time being like, it was a great experience. It was really good fun. And in some ways, those things are invaluable. But from an actual business perspective, pay the woman the damn money. She's good at what she does. I would advocate for her. I loved being on that shoot. I loved the experience I got from a very selfish perspective. But it made me realize that if I ever want to be a business owner, that some things have to be out of your hands sometimes, and you have to just accept that people aren't trying to trick you. People are there to like offer you advice, especially freelancers a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like we yes, obviously we're trying to sell ourselves, but there's a reason we work for ourselves, and it's because we're successful at what we do and we're knowledgeable in what we do. It doesn't matter like where you're from or how old you are. We have something to bring that we deserve to be paid for.
Yeah, massively. Another friend of mine, a designer, we were discussing it and about like rates of pay and like quality of work. And she's similar to me. She's been a freelancer for over a decade. And, she was like, Shah, I've upped my rates. And she's like, do you know what? At least I've got rid of some of the, what did she say? The wheat from the chaff. Is that the saying? And she was like, I've got rid of some of these lower paying clients, but now I can only work 3 days a week and I've paid all my bills. And she goes, you'd pay an accountant for his expert or her expertise, but so why wouldn't people pay me the same amount of money to do my job? Because it's a different expertise. But but I do think you're right as well, going back to when you're younger, and especially in the creative industries, there's a lot of this well, it's a test, or, oh, we'll just do this for free. Oh, can you just take this and this will be for free? And actually, like, that's not fair on people who are trying to get in, like, work properly. I actually had somebody on LinkedIn, she messaged, she's trying to get into the photography side of stuff, like styling side. And she was like, I'd offer my services for free. And I was like, whoa, like, please do not do that, because you will devalue everybody else who's working really hard as a styling assistant right now. You'll devalue all of them and you'll devalue it yourself. And then you'll end up without any work. And all your work, you'll be working, but you'll be a busy fool and it'll be for pittance. And she was like, I appreciate your honesty. And I'm like, I just have to tell you, because I know that there's assistants out there busting a nut trying to get people to pay them the right amount of money.
Yeah. There was a great platform when I was in uni called Find Your Intern.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really fortunate to kind of speak with them and do like an Instagram live at the time. And it was a woman called Jasmine who did it. She was great. Unfortunately, it's not going anymore because she's just a freelancer as well. And she was kind of doing this whole thing by herself on top of being a graphic designer and everything. But it was a really great resource and got the conversation going of every uni will tell students to go and get internships, as many internships as you can. And I remember being like, I don't really think I need an internship. I think I'll just work.
Yeah.
I'll just work. And so, that's what I did. I started doing commissions. I started doing social media. And I'm very fortunate that I'm quite like a self-motivated person. I know that doesn't work for a lot of people. My partner, for example, he did a bunch of internships, but a lot of the time, the places that take interns, they just take, rows and rows of interns on like almost like a cycle. They'll have like 3 interns in for this week, and then next week they'll have new 3 interns in, and just continues all year round.
Yeah.
It's a lot of these post-production places. And one place he was staying at, I think he was like working in like the cafe in the morning, and then he got to like shadow someone in the afternoon. There are people in that cafe who were waiting for a spot as like an editor or a sound tech or something, who had been working in just the cafe sections for like 3 or 4 years, just waiting for a position to open up.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would you encourage us to put ourselves in positions like this where no one is valued for their work? No one. This isn't how things should work. It's not like a competition that we're all. The great thing with creativity is there is a unlimited amount of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You can create opportunity for yourself. I would much rather be told, if you want work and if you want a real experience, start a magazine, start a blog, try and get engagement, try and talk to people, do interviews of your local community. Like, don't just go to, certain companies who will remain nameless that take on buckets and buckets of interns, and you all have a week experience in the same place because you all go to apply for the same jobs and you've all got the same experience and nothing worthwhile in your portfolio because you're making coffees for a week.
Yeah.
It's almost ingrained in us from that point on. They are giving you something.
Yeah.
But your time is valuable. Again, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what job you're doing. If you worked in a cafe, you'd be expected to be paid for a cafe because it's an internship at a creative house. You don't get paid for any of it. You don't get paid for the half a day he was making coffees or the half a day he was, shadowing someone. And it's a really bizarre concept that we're just introduced to and just expected to basically just take. So I never had any internships, like traditional ones. All of my friends did, and I ended up getting a job in exactly the field I wanted to and have done since then. And it's due to just creating opportunity or creating almost just work for myself.
Yeah. I think internships are kind of a very old school way of companies getting free labor. It's just,
Yeah.
it's not very, I never really hear much good about internships, especially now.
No. Which is what Find Your Intern was trying to do. This is what she posted, paid internship opportunities. Sorry, this is what I meant to say, but I'm like, just go off on one. And that's what she was advocating for. And when I brought it up to people who were older than me or lecturers, that I was saying, I was saying to other students basically, hey, because she promoted things for like everything from, small bridal shops to Jimmy Choo and like really an array of positions. And I would basically say to everybody on my course, I promote them. I obviously liked working with them, but again, I got free access for promoting it. But that wasn't even the point. The point was, this is a great resource that is telling you information that no one else is going to tell you.
Yeah.
Because even when I was talking to these people, I remember having the discussion. They were like, but internships are internships. Like, yes, you're there to learn, but they're like imparting their wisdom. Like, it's an exchange of your time for their wisdom. I'm like, what wisdom? Half of this stuff you can, like, if you really want to, you can educate yourself on a lot of things instinctively, or by reaching out to people who are actually more in line with what you want to do. I get that some people don't know and they will need to learn and they need to have these opportunities. Doesn't mean that time isn't valuable. Doesn't mean that it isn't worth something.
Yeah, and actually quite a lot of older people, not all of them, and there used to be a bit of a hierarchy in the creative industry, especially my industry, but a lot of people used to gatekeep. And it'd be like, there's a certain amount of like knowing your worth. If you're going to have somebody with you for a whole week and you're training them, then obviously you need to be paid the right amount for passing on all your skills. But like, there's a certain point of like not gatekeeping, because you're all ultimately there to have the same end anyway. Your goal's all the same. It's all to create nice work and work as a team together. And why Bob the Builder just came in my head then, when you work together to get the job done. That came in my head. But you're ultimately there all to get the job done and job done well. So it's, I don't know. I just don't know why people would want to go on an internship that's like renowned for shoving people in a coffee shop, or
Yeah,
not actually learning enough, and why your professors, lecturers would tell you not to tell other
because
students. That's so annoying.
people still have this value of what's on paper,
Mm,
which I again, it's such an interesting thing because I never say to people when I'm applying for anything, if I'm trying to reach out to a brand, if I'm whatever it is I'm doing, I never say, well, here is all of my references from uni to now. Here's everybody I've worked for, because it's not all viable. It's not all appropriate or even, like applicable for what I'm doing. But for some reason, we need to like fill in every blank of our time. Like,
yeah,
I need to be able to go to a job and say, I've been employed for the past 4 years. I'm a really employable person.
yeah,
That just doesn't, one, we've literally been through like a life changing thing. So that isn't the case for everybody. But two, I just, again, wasn't raised on the fact that I have to have another job as soon as I leave this job. And sometimes we just need time. Sometimes we need to find our own way and whatever happens. But the value of having this 1 week at a certain production house or a certain studio would then make you be qualified for a job. I don't feel like it works like that because, like I said, you can all end up with the same experience. You can all end up with the same CVs.
yeah, yeah,
But if you have a portfolio of work, or especially like, creatively, roles specifically, if you have a portfolio of work of actual examples of things that you have created, whether it's through an opportunity or literally by yourself of your own will, that they don't know. They can't compare that value. All they know is you have a finished result of work that you have created, and that's what you should be judged on. Yeah, I really don't understand it. I wouldn't, obviously, if I ever taught, I wouldn't tell people to
yeah,
do that. I would tell them to pick up a camera or start drawing or whatever it is that they're interested in, to just do that thing and not always look for someone else to give you the connections, because I think times are changing. I don't think that's always necessary.
yeah. I was just going to say, I wonder how much it will change when people who are in their 40s now start lecturing. And I think like we'll have had a different experience, and it'll be, and again, like when your age starts tutoring in like 20 or 30 years time, it'll be different again. And I wonder if then other younger people will be like, oh, actually, it's not the way we do things now. And, because stuff's constantly evolving.
Exactly.
But I think you're right. I think you do need to, as a creative, just show up with your work, even if you've just work in a retail job and you want to, say, working in a supermarket and you're like, oh shit, I just really want to be creative, and you're creating stuff out of work because it's a passion. And that will show way more skill and understanding than making coffees.
Yeah, exactly. Like I had a lot of people ask me how I started doing content creation, because it is, I think people associate it a lot with influencers and
Yeah.
that kind of aspect of content, which is by no means what I do at all. I'm the furthest thing from that. If I can avoid putting my face on it, I kind of will. uh, that's a lie. I actually love myself. But it's a case of, I'm not promoting anything about myself. I get to keep myself very private in many ways. I'm just like a face to the shop or a face to a product, but I only let people know as much as they want. And so people always ask kind of, how did you get into it? And I always say, like, I just started recording. I just started filming stuff. I was lonely. I was sad. My boyfriend was in uni and everyone else was in uni or doing gap years. I was doing a foundation. And my mum was like, you've got a camera.
Yeah.
We've been to TK Maxx. Film your little haul, girl. Go off. Like,
Yeah.
it was just, and I don't know how, I know it's not easy, but people like to see that you try. That's the most important thing. And I'm such a, like, don't go above and beyond. Like, in some ways, don't go above and beyond for someone else. Always, if you're going to go above and beyond, do it for your own stuff, for you,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what you value yourself and you will value it long term. Like, I regret all the times I worked late and spent loads of times on previous roles where I wasn't appreciated. But I'll never regret the things that I've created and that I get to keep and treasure. And that will never change. You know, in 5, 10, 15 years, a painting I've done or a piece that I've created, I can still almost see my own journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I just think that's invaluable.
I think also learning to not be perfect is one of them as well. Because, like, when I started this, I was talking to a friend about it, and he was like, Charlotte, just get on with it because you'll learn how to deal with the hiccups as they arise, and people will help you if you need it, but you just need to get out there. And I think that's sometimes you've just got to close your eyes, hold your nose, and jump in the deep end and just do it. And then you can see your evolution. Like, if I listen back to the first episode of this podcast, I'm probably going to cringe a little bit already. And it's only been out like a year. And I'm sure in 5 years, I'll be like, oh, good God, did I really sound like that? But without trying and without doing it, I'm never going to learn. I'm never going to know. And I'm constantly going to think, oh, what if I did that? What if I did that? You know, you've got to try.
There's nothing I hated more. There's nothing I hate more, rather, present tense, than watching my old YouTube videos. They make me die inside a little bit, especially I just the confidence. Like I wish I could just say like being confident. People like to watch people who are happy and confident, and I just look like a little mouse, and I hated it. But then at the same time, I have to remember the reality of that situation. The presence that I was living in was I was in college, and people would like whisper and talk about me doing YouTube behind my back, and to be honest, even though it's crap, I'm still so proud of myself that I even started. That you will get to that point too, where if you'd never had that crap bit, you'd never be where you are. That's the point, isn't it? They always say the best time to start anything is today.
Yeah.
Like that's how it works, and I'm a massive believer in that. I'm annoyingly so my partner again. I scream at him. I'm like, just do it, just get it done, and he's like, later. I'm like, I'm just a do things now kind of gal because I don't know. I just it feels like progress. It always feels like I'm evolving and growing and moving forward, and I want to make the most out of my time that I have here.
Yeah,
I just got very deep very quickly.
No, I agree with you. And I think life's very short. So you've got to do what makes you happy. And also, like, fuck it. If people are talking about you, then whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
nothing to be embarrassed about.
And those people, they weren't the people I aspire to be like. Like I've always seen people who I'm like, God, you're cool. And it's always the it sounds awful, but they're always the people that are different. They're always the people that stand out in a crowd. I've never looked at, my many of my peers in a way and been like, yeah, I want to be in your position because, like you said, at the end of the day, we all don't know what we're doing.
No.
We're all just like trying to make shit up as we go along. But the people who are so confident and they know who they are, and those are the people I've always wanted to be like, who stand out in the crowd because they're just so comfortable with who they are. I admire that, and I'm not quite there yet. I can fully, again, admit that I'm still young and I'm still trying to kind of figure things out. But even now, I don't have a lot of money, for example. Still, I might look at my wardrobe and be like, "What was I thinking?" I only bought these things a year ago, but I'm kind of almost growing at speed I can't keep up with now, which is a blessing. Like I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I think it is. And I think, like, I'm at a point where my wardrobe, probably maybe 5 years ago, I started just going like, right, let's put in here what I actually enjoy wearing, what gives me a bit of a dopamine hit when I wear it. I mean, I'm sat here in a black hoodie and joggers, but this is loungewear.
Exactly.
But like, I've got like dungarees and like bright stuff, and I love mixing stuff up, and just why not? Why not make it like happy and what you enjoy wearing? On that note of what you enjoy wearing, by the way, I also noticed that you can knit, which I really admire as a skill, because whenever I've tried to crochet on it, I'm so bad at it. So how did you learn to knit? Was this something that was taught to you by a grandparent, or was this something you picked up at uni, or where did you learn?
No, my bless my stepman, she tried to teach me when I was younger, and stubborn as always, I think I was just like, it's not for me. And when I was at my job before last, must be 2 years ago now. I went off sick from work, stress related illness. I was really really ill, and I just kind of couldn't cope. So my mom booked for an all week away for my partner, her, and myself. We all get on so well, and the bunnies as well. I've got two rabbits, so they came with us. We went for a cottage in Cornwall, and my dad had bought me a big bag of like secondhand wool. So I just thought, I'm going to learn. That's all I want to achieve in this time. I had no goals, which is it's kind of the opposite of what I usually do. Like I'm kind of like I like to achieve a certain amount in a day, which is probably still quite a bad way to think, but that's how I am. I like to create stuff constantly, or I just wanted to have no daily tasks. I would wake up in the morning, I would have a coffee, and I would just start trying to follow a video. I might be watching Drag Race in the background, and no one expected me to be anywhere. And I just decided to learn. That was kind of it. It was my mom, Joe, and myself all there trying to just learn how to single chain. And the worse they were, the better I felt about myself. And I'm quite competitive by nature, unfortunately. I think it's an only child thing again. I just always wanted to like be a part of things. So knowing that my mom, who's again like she's a blacksmith, a carpenter, and product designer, so skilled with everything she does. The fact that she kind of couldn't get this media, I was like, yes, I have something over my mother. Finally, I'm not living in her shadow. So I just started making granny squares, and yeah, lo and behold, I stuck with it. I started to crochet now, and I knit beanies. And about a year and 2 months ago, we had a friend come and live with us for a little bit. Finances were tight. We had a spare room, and he came and lived with us. And he happened to be a film photographer and had a really, really big group of friends, basically, who we were able to kind of market these beanies to and get wearing these beanies. And I almost became, the unofficial beanie maker for this kind of social group of like, I suppose, like skateboarders in Manchester. But that was good fun, and I still really enjoy it. But I have taken it a step into like a slightly different direction with that recently, which has definitely been for the better, which was kind of making projects for me instead of making projects to sell.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love doing that, and I probably will continue to do that at like markets and seasonally, and being able to get them in shops and things, that's like a great part of that. But I realized that, yeah, it was more, I was kind of thinking like, oh, how many beanies can I make a week? Instead of like, am I actually liking the stuff I'm creating? Am I, doing it for the right reasons? Because I started off making, like blankets, and they would take months. I would just do them every day after work, or I would, take it away with me when I'm on a train or something. And that is such a slow process, but you expect it to be a slow process. Whereas because I could make a beanie in a day, I would try and make a beanie in a day. So I've put a pause on that, and I just have started making like really like kind of twee trinkety things. Like I made us advent calendars. I crocheted little mini stockings
Oh, that's
in like
cute.
burgundy, like red and white, and then crocheted like the string for them and just hung them up my stairs, so they all had a little chocolate in it, instead of like buying advent calendars, because obviously again it like comes back to being sustainable and using scrap fabrics rather, and not having to consume and buy that kind of thing. And then the chocolates are obviously just nice.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it was a long-winded way of saying, I taught myself.
Yeah, no, I love that story. It's so nice that you found something that you could concentrate on and that could take your mind away and give your mind a rest. Because I do feel like when you're super stressed out, you get signed off from work and the doctors are like, because it happened to me at a very similar age to you, by the way. I was
Oh
trying to run
wow.
a studio and I was 23, 24, and I got signed off with stress. And instead of trying to do something creative to relax my mind, I was sat at home thinking about all the stuff that needed doing at home and all the stuff that needed doing at work, even though it was being covered at work. And it actually made me worse, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's so nice that you found a creative outlet to help ease your mind and kind of.
Yeah, because God, stress is, I mean, it's weird to learn it at such a young age. And I have been told for years that every one of my pains and aches is stress. Like people are always like, you're probably stressed, that you do a bit much or blah blah blah. And in some ways, I think it's a good motivator. But it also, when it's not from yourself, when it's an external stress, and you get to the point where you're ill and you're like, you just can lose sense of who you are.
Yeah.
It's so consuming. And a lot of skills that we pick up, like painting and drawing, and again, like even filming and editing for me, because they're such a familiar thing, I can almost do them without focusing my mind on it, which means my mind is free to almost like run amok.
Yeah.
So I can like be doing something and still be focusing on or stressing about other things. But for once, I had to step back and be like, this is something I do not know. This is not something I cannot just pick up a crochet hook and some wool and assume that I'm going to get it,
Yeah.
which is something that so much of us find comfort in, is just knowing instinctively or picking something up really quickly. Just like committing to learn something is such a hard thing. And so I just had to watch this video, which I couldn't not watch it. I couldn't take my eye away because I would miss something and then I would mess up. And it sounds like such a simple and obvious thing to do, but for all of us, we are so overstimulated all the time. We have our phones or TV or music, and I get overstimulated fairly easy when it comes to sounds and technology, so I can't listen to like several things at once. So for this, it was my laptop is on and we're all watching this video really slowly. We've got it on like, what is it, zero point 0.5 speed or something. And they're talking really weirdly. And my mum's going, can you get it any slower? Can you get it any slower? And I'm like, right, you two suck at this. I'm going to watch it on my phone with my headphones. And I just was in the zone. And it just took undoing it and redoing it and undoing it and redoing it. And I think I woke up early one morning. My mom came down and I was like, look, I've like made a full, like a granny square. Like I made, and she was like, how have you done that so neatly? I was like, I just had to listen and watch and focus, and I couldn't be distracted by anything else because I wouldn't get it right.
Yeah.
And the fact it was so simple, but that it was enough to occupy my mind and for me to find enjoyment in completing a task again, which I hadn't found in such a long time, because my to-do list can be this long. I'm completing 20 tasks a day, but to complete this one thing that I couldn't do before, yeah, it was a great thing to try and do. I wish I'd done it sooner, but it came at the right time for me, and it's something I can really enjoy now. And it's something that, for example, people, and you were having like kids now, a couple of my friends have just announced they're pregnant, so I'm already thinking about like baby blankets I can make and little things for them. So it's no longer about making money from that. It's about like being able to provide something at what's actually like a low cost, and again, like sustainably, because I try and source my wool sustainably and secondhand or ethically. I actually make wool out of my rabbit fur.
Really?
Yeah. So every time I brush them for the past 2 years, I just collected all their fur, and then you like spin it and turn it into balls of yarn so I
That's
can re-knit.
incredible.
It's kind of crazy. I'm
That's
a bit of a crazy
incredible.
rabbit mom.
How much wool this has thrown me off. How much wool have you got now?
From They're only small rabbits. They are only lops, and they've got like kind of shorter hair. Whereas if you had like a dog who like molts constantly, it would be a lot quicker. Um, but I would say you can probably make about 200 grams of wool, which is like like a big decent size ball of wool, maybe every 6 months.
That's loads.
It's a decent amount because there's two of them. If there
Yeah.
was one, it'd be different. But yeah, because there's the two of them, and you can obviously like dye it, and you can try and dye it with like beetroot and like natural dyes, turmeric and things to make it different colors.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
it is cool, isn't
That's
it?
so
Thank
cool. Yeah. I'm going to have to tell my friend Cicely about this because she crochets and knits all the time, and she's crocheted a balaclava for herself, like out of granny
you.
squares.
Nice.
I'm going to have to tell her this. I'm going to be like, you need to get rabbits and then make your own wool and like jeepers. That is
Yeah,
so cool.
I know. I'd have like an Angora rabbit, like the really big fluffy ones, when they molt loads, or like even like a chow chow, like a dog that just molts, so you could just constantly reproduce. It would be cool. Be very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. That's so cool.
But it's just making use of things, isn't it? That you have, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and like, why not? Why not? I've only got a couple more questions for you, but one question is, what is your favorite part about content creating? Have you got like one part that you can pick out and you're like, I really love that section of it?
I I like making beautiful things. That I don't know how. I love the final product. I love editing. I really do like the editing process. But yeah, it's the pride of creating something that, because other people react to content in such a weird way because it's so temporary.
Yeah.
It's almost, although it's up there forever, people kind of see it over maybe like a week,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what it's appreciated for. But I rewatch my own content, which is maybe somewhat vain, but all the time because I have this little library of these really short videos, and I just love, I love being able to highlight the best parts of everything and the best, oh, well, I say the best, the most visually pleasing or parts, or I like to, I also get a lot of moments that I suppose you wouldn't usually capture. People don't think to capture things, and that's my job to do. Again, and maybe in my personal life, I don't film everything all the time. I'm pretty bad at that. But when it comes to, again, like still life in the shop and catching moments, I just immediately, I'm like, God, the shop looks gorgeous, or, we've just got fresh flowers, or someone's here to visit. And it you can produce a feeling, can't you, with
Yeah.
certain pieces of content. And if you don't visit us, if you don't visit the shop, I'm kind of what you have to try and gauge what we're like.
Yeah.
And you're basing a lot of your opinions on these pieces that I create. And so yeah, I like to just create a good of an as impression and as possible. And I like it when, obviously, the people I'm working for are proud of the content, and they're really happy with it. That's always great, and the community is involved in it and loves it as well. So yeah, generally it's a finished outcome. Not even the interaction with it, just actually the piece itself. Sometimes it just
Yeah.
very proud moment.
I suppose being the visual person, having that final piece is like, that's your end goal, isn't it? Having that final piece all like wrapped up, and all the journey to that final piece is the
Yeah,
conception and like figuring it out and discussing it. And
especially a lot of it. I mean, now I think a lot of what we do is kind of a UGC, which is more user generated content. So it's a lot more natural content nowadays. But maybe a year or so ago, I did a lot of like stop motion animation, which I loved, especially when you get it there with, like, when I'm very much in tune with the music.
yeah, yeah.
So if I choose my track and then I'm editing along it, you just see my head like going each time. I'm like, bum, bada, bum, bum, boom, yes, that kick there was so good. And just like editing things in time. And it just feels so satisfying. I don't know how to say it other than it's like editing, maybe I have sometimes, especially when I used to YouTube, oh my gosh, I could have hours of footage. I could have like a day's worth of footage, like 24 hours odd, and to be able to condense it to a 20-minute video. But now it's even, I could have hours worth of content and I'm trying to turn it into a 60-second video. That's the
Yeah,
length they are nowadays. It's it's so difficult to almost be like, these are the best bits of everything that I've captured, because I try and capture everything
yeah,
that's nice and good. So it's almost a lot of, yeah, taking things away to really get this raw, polished version of what I can create. And it's again, when that music, that's when it's really good.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
So I've got one last question for you, and you can answer it in whichever way you want, and it can be creatively, life, however. But Immy, what inspires you?
Oh, okay. Um, I'm a bit cheesy with this. What inspires me? I always say my mom. I mean, I've talked about her for like half of this. I have such a good relationship with her, and she massively inspires me. But so does my grandma. My nan, she passed away several years ago now, and so my design studio is called Wendy Studios, and her name was Wendy, but it's spelt like differently. It's DEE instead of Wendy, and that was, yeah, to her, because she was an artist and always just helped me pursue everything that I ever wanted to, and yeah, it was just such a massive support. They yeah, inspire me every day. But in general, in life, on a daily basis, I just believe that our time is so limited, and like I said, in some ways I can contribute so little, or I could contribute a lot. And my only goal, my really only goal, is to be happy myself first, because that's one of the hardest things, and then share that and try and do, with whatever power, with whatever finances I have, try and put good things back into the world. And that's all I can do. And I think that's what, gets me up each day, is maybe right now I'm not in the best place, but one day I might be, and one day I might be able to help others. And I don't know, I've just always been that way inclined. Again, that's just how I was raised. And so I suppose a lot of it is my parents and my upbringing. And I like animals a lot too. They inspire me a lot.
Yeah.
I love my bunnies. I got to work hard for them so they have a roof over their head. Yeah, that's my inspiration.
I think that's a lovely answer. And I think even doing what you're doing and giving the Stockport community a nice friendly face when you're in still life, and giving them nice content, and you're still giving back to people now. And I think that's such a nice thing. And people forget that these tiny little glimmers, I like to call them like little glimmers of happiness throughout the day, they lift people up. So actually, I think you're giving people more than what you think you are.
I mean, I live my life through those.
Mm.
In general, I think this is such a hard existence, and I felt that way for a very long time. So, in some ways, I think when I was younger, I didn't even think I would make it to 25, but, which I am next month. I remember being like such a melodramatic person in a way, but dealing with a lot of mental health at the same time, and just being like, this is hard. Like, I don't know how to keep this up. And I'm so proud of myself for every tiny little achievement. But also, yeah, if I can be that for someone else, if I can just, like I said, be that conversation, be that person to listen to. Or I'm an extremely awkward person internally. Like, I'll probably get off this call and be like, oh, what did I say? Did I say something wrong? Because I overanalyze everything. But yeah, I don't have a hero complex, but I really do want to help people. Genuinely, I think that there are so many people who can that don't. And I am always wanting to help people. And I have so little to give that I want to work hard, so I'm one day in a position where I can give more, and actually use my power and my influence, whatever that may be, to do more and to help more people. And like you said, whether that's the community of Stockport right now, whether it's, making sure I still do my recycling and whatever little step it is, then that's all we can do. So yeah, that, long story short, I'm it's
No,
soppy now.
I love it. I love that we've ended on a slightly soppy note, because I think all of us have something to give others. And whether you realize it or not, you're probably helping others throughout their day. And it's just a lovely thing that you're so involved with the community in Stockport as well. And just keep it up, girl. Keep it up.
Thank you. I will try my best. Yeah. And any Stockport locals will have to come visit Still Life, because my face will be there.
Yes. Yes, it will. Right. I will love you and leave you. I've really enjoyed our conversation tonight, and it's been so nice to actually sit down and have a conversation where we're not distracted by work or other customers or whatever else coming in. And thank you so much for coming on.
You too. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, follow, and share, as it really helps this little podcast out. And if you have found value in the podcast and you have the means to, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. This will help keep the podcast going. Join me next week for another fantastic guest. Bye!